A warm greetings to you. My name is Russell and I am the overseer of the Grace Society. And in this video, I'm going to share with you a little bit about me, a little bit about my backstory and how I came to be the overseer of the Grace Society. So let's begin with discussing a little bit about me, because for you to truly understand why I am best suited and most competent to be the overseer of the Grace Society, it would be helpful for you to know my life journey up till this point, because the history tends to unveil the mystery. So let's begin at the beginning, where I will now attempt to distill a very long backstory down to its vital elements. We begin with the fact that I was born in Essex, a county of the United Kingdom, and I was born into a working class family scenario. And it was during my early childhood that my family became the classic rags to riches story, where both my parents worked very hard to become financially successful. And in the process, they decided to give their 5 children all of the choices, privileges, and material things that they themselves could not afford when they were kids, where unfortunately they nurtured a spoilt brat within me, in that I was given everything and it was given to me at every whim. And because everything was given to me on a plate, I gained everything and yet I valued nothing. Fast forward into my adulthood years, and to keep a complicated and checkered story simple and digestible, I embarked on a few different careers. I also created and built several businesses, and I settled down with a woman, and together we have 3 beautiful children. However, for most of my adulthood life, I was this self-absorbed, arrogant, ignorant, narcissistic, and sociopathic moron that was intellectually inept and emotionally retarded, to put it nicely. And I had this super strong ego that mistakenly thought that the entire world revolved around me, and that my way was the best and the only way. And of course, I was way off in my limited and erroneous thinking. Furthermore, I had cultivated this nightmarish lifestyle of riding along on a merry-go-round of chasing the money, chasing after the money to fund a debt-ridden lifestyle, chasing after the money so that I could have all of these material things, all those material things that I had had since my childhood days, that I had mistakenly thought defined who I was and defined my worth. It was a lifestyle that was a complete departure from my true nature. I was living a life that did not align with who I was truly supposed to be. And it was a life of immense suffering. And because I was not really coping with the life that I had created, I soothed my stress and misery with a plethora of strong narcotics and alcoholic beverages. And for quite some time, the chemical stimulants, they did a great job of giving me some pleasurable escapism. And my super strong ego that was very hot-headed and willful managed to keep the lifestyle juggling show on the road, despite the enormous stress of burning the candle at both ends, where I persevered and pushed on, where I wouldn't be told any different. However, living hard and fast is not without its consequences. Because I had cultivated a life that was so extreme, so fast and so furious, I often found myself in a lot of unforeseen trouble where I didn't even bother to look in the rearview mirror to acknowledge all of the carnage that was happening behind me until, that is, everything, and I mean everything, finally caught up with me and the wheels of my life started to come off. And so back in my early 30s, over a 5-year period, my entire life slowly came apart. And when I say came apart, I mean that in every sense. We're talking about relationships that come to a bitter end. We're talking separation from my children. We're talking about failed businesses, huge financial losses that led to me being broken, wondering how I would even eat the next day. And I also went through several nervous breakdowns. And then I experienced a depression that lasted for almost 2 years. And at one time, I even found myself living down and out on the streets. Just me, a sleeping bag, and a rucksack of clothes, and a head full of shame and regrets. I went from having everything to nothing. And the irony is, because I had nothing, that's when I started to value everything. That's when I started to appreciate the simple things in life. And I truly know that I was supposed to have that experience of falling into a state of disgrace, that experience of tragedy, and with the realization that come from that, which is the gift of life, where that hardship, those hard times have shaped who I am today. It is the fire that has forged my steel. And yet, I have more to share with you. You see, most of my adulthood life, I was living as this super strong ego. An ego that was so blinded by its foolish pride and insatiable greed. An ego that was so lost and so fake and so far departed from who I truly am. And it was my ego that was always forcing me into situations that were not right for me, that were too much for me, that caused me so much trauma and failure. That ego eventually took me to the depths of utter destruction and despair. Then something profound happened to me. There came this day, this one specific day, that I had reached an absolute rock bottom where enough was enough and I just couldn't take it anymore. I could not continue on with life because I was creating so much pain and suffering. And that was the day that I seriously contemplated suicide, because sadly, I had reasoned that I would rather be dead than carry on. And it was during that moment that I realized that I could not carry on as I was. And that was the moment when I finally surrendered. Or rather, it was my ego that had surrendered. In that moment of surrender, that's when I experienced what I can only describe as this awakening event. Within the flash of a few seconds, within my mind and body, I experienced this complete life review where I could see my entire life mapped out in front of me. And I could also see that I had been running away from myself, running away from every mistake and failure. And I was burying everything in denial and self deception. I was drowning it all away at the bottom of a bottle because I was deeply ashamed of who I was and what I had done, because I couldn't handle the truth. And this awakening event that happened in the past is when my conscious awareness separated from my identity, where I came into my complete beingness, and where I realized that I was not my identity, that I was not the narrative, not the labels, names, or stories of everything that I had believed myself to be. I realized that I am the conscious awareness that is aware of my mind, and that I am not the mind itself. And that may seem strange for you to hear, but when you understand that the mind is just a learned experience that we call memory, and that the conscious awareness is the true you, then you awaken from the limitations of the mind. Then you become the observer of your mind and not the passenger of your mind. You become enlightened. Anyhow, I have digressed. So let's get back on track, back to the point of how I've come into the position as the overseer of the Grace Society. Well, becoming the overseer of a private society is not something that you just walk into. It is a position that you must grow into. You see, all of those years ago when I had that awakening experience, I had awakened to being a man-child. And a man-child means that although I was a fully grown man, I still had a childlike mindset, character, and attitude. I was still immature, undeveloped, and unknowing. And because I had this huge ego and foolish pride that mistakenly thought that I was always right, I would rarely, and if ever, admit that I was wrong. And that meant that I did not think that I had to change or self-develop. And so, to cut another very long story short, after my awakening event, I had this burning desire to learn more about me, to learn more about why I did the things I did, and learn more about this world that we live in. And so I embarked on a journey of self-discovery, self-development, and self-education, of exploring, studying, questioning, understanding, and realizing exactly who I am, where I am, and why I am here. And during this period of growing up, I became proficient in the disciplines of behavioral psychology, psychotherapy, astrology, health and fitness, nutrition, religion, spirituality, politics, socio-economics, and many more and different disciplines. And as I embarked on this journey of exploration and development, there were many years of sifting through lots of misinformation and disinformation, of having to discern between fiction and fact, of having to go through much trial and error, of seeing what works and what does not work. Because you only truly know when the rubber meets the road, right? And after many trials and tests and much disproving and proving of things, I have got to the essential truths about the human experience and about this world of ours, where I have developed this holistic and comprehensive knowledge that is rooted in the actual facts of reality, where I have mastered many disciplines for many different aspects of life, and where in my humble approach to life, I'm still unveiling and learning more. And perhaps more importantly, I have cultivated a balanced mindset. I have experienced life from both sides. I have been through the ups and the downs, the ins and the outs, and the twists and the turns. I have succeeded in life many times, and I have failed just as many times more. I have walked the dark path in life, and I have returned. I'm now standing in the light with a clear and coherent mind, feeling strong and certain, with the wisdom to know wrong from right, with the winning strategies and with the compassion and enthusiasm to take the right action and get good results. And so the man that you see in front of you today is a man that has been tested and proved. I am a man of unwavering conviction because I'm aligned with my true nature and life purpose and fully connected with my heart and soul. And so I am always guided with a good conscience to do what is right for all that I support and serve. And so I am here to gift you with my experience, talents, and skills. With me, you will find that I am an attentive listener and proficient learner. I am quick to absorb and make sense of new information, and I'm quick to adapt to new people and new beginnings. I'm also a cautious and conscientious practitioner. I like to first observe, then internalize, question, and analyze things before I dive into them, whereby I anticipate there will always be changing variables and unknowns, and where I'm eager to experiment to find the winning formula, where I'm quick to recognize, admit, and rectify mistakes, where I am prepared to swiftly change tact for a better outcome. And once I am certain, as certain can be, you can rest assured that I will fully commit to the task with 100% dedication and tenacity. And I also have a hyper creative imagination. I have this wild and colourful imagination that dares to dream. The impossible is possible. And I will often cast my mind into the future to visualize what could be, then come back to the present moment to create that future. Therefore, you can always expect me to be focused on new concepts and ideals. You can expect some extraordinary and lucid ideas from me that will challenge you to dream brighter, bigger, and better. I also see myself as an encourager and a fighter because I recognize the goodness in people, and I always speak to that goodness. I always give credit where credit is due. And I praise and support those who are willing to try and try again. You've got to love a trier. And when the chips are down and the future looks bleak, you can count on me to stare into the dark abyss and say, is that all you've got? Bring it on, because I'm pushing onwards and upwards. And I do choose to push onwards and upwards because I am someone that aims for higher and greater standards, in that I choose to do what's right, what's healthy, what's quality, and what's prosperous. I choose excellence over mediocrity. I choose virtue over vice. I always choose to give it my very best and stand as the exemplar. And so with me, you can expect a man of integrity that will follow through with what I say I will do. practicing what I preach with consistency and proficiency. And thus, you will always know where I stand and where you stand with me. What you see is what you get, exactly as it says on the tin. Because I do have a devotion to the truth. I come forth with transparency and honesty. I tell it like it is. And that's because I value trust. And truth is the solvent of trust. To form secure and reliable relationships where we can properly trust each other, we must speak and act upon the truth. We must come forward in our truth. In fact, the entire foundations of the Grace Society is built from the rock solid base of truth and trust. And so, whilst we are on the subject of being honest, I am just like everybody else. I do have human conditions. I have flaws and limitations, and I am fallible. I certainly do not proclaim to know it all. I certainly do not assume that I have all of the answers. I can sometimes make mistakes. Sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I lose my grip and slip. However, and this is important to know, that I am always quick to check and correct myself. Whenever I find myself going down the wrong path, whenever I have acted upon wrong information, whenever I have got it wrong, I'm quick to recognize this and swing back onto the right track. Swinging back to a place of right footing so that I ground myself back into the truths of reality. Because we do live in a world that is constantly changing. And whenever the winds of change have swept in, and this world has become uncertain and unstable, when all of the signposts have swung out of position, when the darkness has come and people are lost or unsure, you can always rest assured that I will remain calm and composed, resilient and undeterred, with a clear vision and aim of always getting back to the right side of things, because I have already outlined the right side of things in the mission statement of the Grace Society. And so what else should you know about me? Well, my life is not always focused on work, work, work. In between my devotion to the Grace Society, I am busy falling in love with this wonderful gift of life and enjoying those special moments of joy, bliss, and beauty. Sometimes I love to just let it loose. When life gets a little too serious, I like to balance that with seeing the funny side of things. And so I often find myself being amused at just how hypocritical and contradictive the human experience really can be. And because I usually have this laser-like focus and steadfast commitment to things, I like to find balance by sometimes doing something that is totally out of character, totally unexpected. I like to go off-piste and go on a new venture. And sometimes I will throw some curveballs, sometimes I will throw it all up in the air, and sometimes I will start all over again. And I love to meditate. I meditate on certain aspects of life. I meditate in nature, and I meditate in the stillness and silence. Because I find that during meditation, that's when I get to connect with the source of life. And that's when I receive inspiration. That's where I get my creative ideas and intuitive guidance, those universal downloads from the ether. In fact, everything about the Grace Society has come to me from being in the graceful state of meditation. Also, solitude happens to be my favorite mood. I do like to spend time alone because I love to stretch my imagination and contemplate ideas, to explore new possibilities and push the boundaries of what is possible. And what else can I share with you? Yes, I also love to produce music. I write songs, melodies, and I play the acoustic guitar. I also like exploring different parts of the world and experiencing new cultures. I like walking and trekking out in nature. I find that really soothing and healing. And I also love spending time with my loved ones. I love watching them grow, win, laugh, and be joyful, and doing my best to give them my help and support. And that is exactly what makes me feel good and useful when I'm able to help, guide, and support others on their life journey. I get such a thrill, a sense of worthiness and righteous pleasure when acting with noble and virtuous intent. As far as I'm concerned, there is no greater privilege than the opportunity to do the right thing and become a better human being because of it. Where goodness inspires goodness and life supports life, and where every good deed that is done in this world is a gift that just keeps on giving, and we all grow in wisdom and affection. And listen, I know like it might seem like I've rattled on, but I have given you the fast track details of where I've been, what I've done, and how I've come to be here today. It would take me a whole book to explain everything, and perhaps I will write that book sometime down the road. But for now, let me just sum things up before I get to what my actual role is as the overseer of the Grace Society. And to summarize, after 4 decades plus of living on this earth, I have encountered much experience and many painstaking realizations. I've taken the blows, I've learned how to duck, pivot, and then strike back at the right moment with the right solution. I've also proven that from the deepest of tragedies, you can emerge triumphant. And in that triumphancy, I have collated many different and specialized skill sets that has blessed me with the aptitude to visualize, conceptualize, strategize, build, and manage entire organizations. Where today, I now live a healthy, balanced, peaceful, and prosperous life, where it is a gift to be alive. And it is a privilege to be here and to gift humanity as the overseer of the Grace Society. And so, what exactly does it mean to be the overseer? What is the position and role of an overseer? Well, I first need to preface the answer to that question with this. I have founded and formed the Grace Society in response to the wrongs, immoralities, corruptions, incompetency, tyranny, and the sheer lunacy that I have been witnessing in this world. Many years ago, on my journey of exploration and discovery, as I began to study the cultures of our world, I became very aware of and deeply concerned with the direction that we are taking as a human race. And for many years, I was pointing my finger at everything and saying, well, that's that's a problem, and that shouldn't be like that. And of course, when you're focused on nothing but problems, you soon become overwhelmed and demoralized by the sheer weight of those ghastly problems. I also realized that a lot of the problems in this world are being perpetuated by the leaders of nations and created by the malpractice and malfeasance of corrupt individuals and corporate businesses, all of which are only interested in power and money. Where the greed for power and money has been placed before the welfare of this earth and the welfare of the people of earth. And I kept thinking to myself, where are the good people? Where are the good leaders with good hearts that do good things? At the same time, I also came to a sharp realization that I myself needed to take the responsibility of becoming that someone that is willing to do the right thing to create a better world, to create a new earth paradigm that is far superior to this one. And that's when I began to receive a vision. And that vision is to create a new society that I have named the Grace Society. And I have named this organization the Grace Society because this is an organization of like-minded souls that co-create and collaborate in the graceful state of doing great deeds. The Grace Society is a world-class organisation that is focused on the mission of humanitarian and environmental projects that will see a complete transformation to the way that we live and for the betterment for all of life on earth, where good people with good hearts and good intentions come together in mutual benefit to utilise their talents and skills for the greater good, for the greater each, and the greater whole. And so I do hold the office of the overseer. As the overseer of the Grace Society, I have a specific role to play. And my role is to ensure that the overall vision and mission of our society is manifested into its tangible fruition. So, what exactly is the position of an overseer? Well, just like the words suggest, my role and responsibility is to oversee and be looking after the entire operations of the Grace Society to ensure that the organisation remains on track with its mission, and to ensure that all members of our society are able to fulfill their roles and responsibilities. And so I want you to imagine the role of an overseer as being similar to the role of a conductor of an orchestra. The orchestra is a collaboration of people with very unique and special gifts. And as the conductor, my role is to provide the right environment so that each member of the Grace Society can do what they do best and do what they love doing, where I can provide all of the needs and guidance that will assist them to express their best performance. As the overseer of the Grace Society, as the conductor of this orchestra, my role is to bring the members of our society together and provide this beautiful arrangement, this harmonic symphony of talents and skills that when creating together, they can produce something that is far greater, far more powerful, and far more special than they could ever achieve on their own. And because I can see the overall vision of the performance, I am able to guide everybody's talents and skills so that everybody is working together in this perfect melody, where everybody is aligned, in key and in tune, and enjoying and benefiting from being part of this amazing experience where each one of us, each member of the society, has an important role to play in the performance of our society. And it is the individual talents and skills of each member of the society that brings the music, that brings the passion and devotion in which to produce a masterpiece. And that masterpiece is the mission of the Grace Society. And that seems like a good note on which to bring this presentation to the end. My wish is that you now have a deeper understanding of what makes me tick, what I stand for, what drives me forward, what I'm passionate about, and why I have manifested the Grace Society and how I can be of assistance and benefit to you. And should you want to know more, you will find there is a lot more to discover. And so I do welcome the opportunity of us both discussing how we can best synergize our skills and ideas with the purpose of creating something magnificent together. And so I encourage you to explore the official documents of the Grace Society and see if your heart and mind aligns with the mission and our projects. And in the meantime, my deepest thanks for taking the time to learn more about me and more about the Grace Private Society. And I wish you and yours the very best